Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do. Board-certified cardiologists in East Patchogue, New Hyde Park, and Hicksville, New York.
Education backgrounds as well.
Identify and treat hyperlipidemia.
So we can get them good care quickly.
What inspired me to get into medicine.
And we wanted to make sure that we raise our kids.
Tailor our therapy specifically to this population.
Welcome to Healthy Living Show on IndiaLife Television, brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. I am Tara Shajan. This is a new show that is totally about your heart health. In the show, we will be bringing in doctors and medical experts who will talk about how to have a healthy living. We have with us today Dr. Satish Joseph, Dr. Sarin Patel, Dr. Wasik Rahman, Dr. Deepu Alexander, Dr. Bimal Patel, and Dr. Adam Kruger. Without further delay, let's welcome Dr. Satish Joseph, who has been practicing medicine for over 3 decades, right here in Queens and Long Island area, and he is the director of Brookhaven Heart. Doctor, thank you for being on the Healthy Living Show on IndiaLife Television, brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. Dr. Satish, please let us know about yourself a little more for our viewers, and we would like to know what inspired you to become a doctor.
Thank you, Tara, for having me today. It's my pleasure to be here today. I was born and raised in Kerala, in a village called Parapura, near the town of Thodupuzha. My parents were elementary school teachers, and obviously there was a lot of emphasis on education in the family. Having said that, as a child growing up in elementary and middle school, I just wanted to be a child. We were growing up, playing, and we had assignments during summer times. Most of the time, some labor, frankly, digging ditches, selling cocoa beans, maintaining trees, taking care of the cows. So summer times we had assignments in 8th grade, when I was not a particularly good student in school in terms of my grades, but when I was in my 8th grade, my summer assignment was to be bystander for my uncle, who was admitted to a hospital with pneumonia. So I stayed with him for about 2 weeks' time, taking care of him. When the doctor came for round in the morning hours, the floor was completely silent, and everybody was waiting for the doctor to come to the room. I used to stand next to my uncle, and the doctor comes and examines my uncle and touches him, reassures him, asks questions. After that doctor leaves, my uncle felt so comfortable and reassured and grateful to the doctor. So during those 2 weeks of my taking care of my uncle, helping him in the hospital, and understanding the medical profession is what inspired me to become a doctor. Then after that, I went to my father and I told that I want some additional help because I was not doing well in school. So we got some extra help for me during my summertime and evening hours and weekend hours. It's called tuition in Kerala at the time. So I took some tuition classes, so my grades started getting better. So I wanted to become a doctor. That was my intent from that point onwards, and I worked hard and I got into medical school in Kerala, Kottayam Medical College. Finished Kottayam Medical College. I was valedictorian in Kottayam Medical College, and then After that, I got into Jimmer Pondicherry, which is one of the premier schools in India for medicine. I did my MD there. I finished my MD and subsequently got married. My wife is Keralite. She was born in Kerala. She came here at the age of 4, and her parents lived in Long Island. So I immigrated to the United States, and I went did my further education in New York, Stony Brook University Hospital. I did my residency. I did my fellowship in cardiology, subsequently in cardiovascular imaging, and 1 year in interventional cardiology. That's my background.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Satish, let's move on with the questions. The first question I'm going to ask you is, what draws you to this community for the service?
My wife's family is from Long Island. I have relatives in Long Island. I went to do residency in Stony Brook Hospital and did my fellowship in Stony Brook Hospital and did imaging fellowship in St. Francis Hospital. So I was familiar with this community through my friends, family, relatives, and colleagues at work. So I wanted to stay in Long Island and started a practice. I also wanted to raise my family here, my children here. We go to church here. We go to Indian restaurants. Weekend we spend with our friends and families. So it's a community, and we wanted to be part of this community. Which after coming here, I already knew this community for several years, and I wanted to go nowhere else but stay in Long Island. Besides, Queens Long Island is a vibrant Indian community, great school districts, community, churches, restaurants, and cities close by, and the airport convenient for travel to India. So many factors made me stay in Long Island.
Our viewers around the world, we need to take a short break. There is so much to talk about in our show, Healthy Living. And we have many more doctors who will be sharing the important and vital medical information about heart health, which is important to all. We'll be right back.
Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do. Board-certified cardiologists in East Patchogue, New Hyde Park, and Hicksville, New York. Call 631-654-3278 for an appointment. Same-day appointments, evening hours, short wait times, affordable self-pay fees, quality care, state-of-the-art treatments, exceptional staff, informed patients, vein clinic, cardiac pedit services, amazing and caring medical doctors to treat you well. Visit our offices located near you. Brookhaven Heart, you are at the heart of everything we do. Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do.
Welcome back to Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. We have important information to share with you, and for that we have many doctors in our show. So let's continue the show. Doctor, you have explained to us why you choose this community, but now let's talk about your practice.
Sure. After finishing my education in interventional cardiology fellowship, I started a practice named Brookhaven Heart, originally in Patchogue, Suffolk County, New York. Subsequently, we grew into two additional locations, two locations in Nassau County, one in New Hyde Park and one in Hicksville. Hicksville is presently closed for renovation. We expect it to open in 4 to 6 months' time. Our practice is owned and operated by physicians, which gives us the flexibility to meet the needs of the community and have a variety of features which helps to meet the challenges our patients and community faces. We have evening hours, we have weekend hours, we take same-day appointments, we take all the insurances. Our physician speaks multiple languages that come from varying cultural backgrounds and educational backgrounds as well. So they are, and as well as our staff who speaks multiple languages. Our facilities are state-of-the-art with all the equipment. We also have a facility to book online appointments. We have affordable self-pay solutions for patients who don't have insurance. and patients who face economic hardship have the options to get discounted or subsidized care, or sometimes free care, provided that they provide documentation, which is supported documentation. So in a variety of ways, we try to be different from other practices in our neighborhood. We also have a laboratory which can perform most of the commonly performed tests. These are the features which makes our practice different from other practices.
Dr. Saran Patel, would you be able to elaborate a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Tara, for inviting me to the show, and all of us as well. I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, and I did all my education in New York and Boston as well. And then after I finished all of my medical education training, I actually spent several years working and practicing as a cardiologist in India. After working in India for several years, I moved back to the United States and eventually landed up here in Long Island, where I live with my wife and two small children. I specialize in interventional cardiology, doing angioplasties and stents, and I also specifically specialize in vascular medicine, in treating patients with non-healing leg wounds and ulcers and varicose veins. So what you can ask me is say that, given your experience of working both in India and in the United States, what do you see as the key differences in the practice of cardiology?
Dr. Saran, since you have worked in India and US, what do you say, talk about the key difference between the Indian population and the US population based on the cardiac standpoint?
That's a great question, Tara, and thank you for asking that. The Indian community, both in India and the US, has a lot of differences in terms of our risk for developing heart disease. And unfortunately, the Indian community at large has an increased risk of developing heart disease, and we need to tailor our therapy specifically to this population. When we look at the studies that are done in the medical community in the United States, they mostly focus on white Americans, some Hispanics, some blacks, but mostly Indians are left out of those studies, so we don't have enough information to be able to know how the Indian population should be treated. We do know that the risk is higher in the Indian population. We do know that Indians develop heart disease at a younger age. We do know that cholesterol levels tend to be very different in the Indian population. We know that diabetes is rampant in the Indian population, and all of these are things that lead to a higher risk of having heart disease within the Indian population. And we as a group here are happy to be taking care of a very large and diverse Indian population in the Queens, Long Island area. And with our knowledge and expertise, we're able to tailor services and therapies specifically to the Indian community.
Dr. Deepu Alexander, would you be able to give us a brief journey of your career as a cardiologist?
Thank you, Tara, for having me and my colleagues here. My background is that I'm from Kerala. I did my schooling in Trivandrum, followed by in the Middle East, my high school. I did my medical training at Kastuba in Mangalore, then in cardiology and internal medicine and cardiology at Stony Brook Hospital, and I joined Brookhaven Heart in 2012 and have been there ever since.
Yeah, we heard about your career side, but we would like to know whether you live in Long Island and how long are you be here? You are within the same community?
Yes, I've been in Long Island since 2004. That's when I came to Stony Brook Hospital to do my residency training. I'm married with 3 children. My eldest one is in just about to start college. The rest are in high school right now.
Dr. Alexander, what are the preventive measures that we all can take to promote a healthy heart?
Thank you, Tara, for this question. I think from a preventative standpoint, I think the basics are the most important here. In terms of identifying and treating hypertension, hyperlipidemia, these are all very important. In our population, especially in the South Indian population, there is a lot of diabetes and pre-diabetes, that is the beginning stage of diabetes per se. And even in that population, there is a role in identifying heart disease early on. We can do screening methods, which I would say that for primary care physicians, they should identify and treat hyperlipidemia. Hypertension should be treated to goals. Calcium score is an option where we can actually identify coronary atherosclerosis. These are all ways that we can actually identify disease and potentially treat them.
Our viewers around the world, we need to take a short break. There is so much to talk about in our show, Healthy Living. And we have many more doctors who will be sharing the important and vital medical information about heart health, which is important to all. We'll be right back.
Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do. Board-certified cardiologists in East Patchogue, New Hyde Park, and Hicksville, New York. Call 631-654-3278 for an appointment. Same-day appointments, evening hours, short wait times, affordable self-pay fees, quality care, state-of-the-art treatments, exceptional staff, informed patients, vein clinic, cardiac pedit services, amazing and caring medical doctors to treat you well. Visit our offices located near you. Brookhaven Heart, you are at the heart of everything we do. Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do.
Welcome back to Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. We have important information to share with you, and for that we have many doctors in our show. So let's continue the show. Dr. Bimal Patel, would you introduce yourself and your practice?
Sure, thank you for having us. My name is Bimal Patel. I grew up here in the Queens, Long Island area, primarily in New Hyde Park. What inspired me to get into medicine, my father is a physician, so I was around it my entire life. But more importantly, when I entered college, my mother got sick with some cardiac symptoms. Seeing her go through that really made me want to pursue a career in medicine. So I ended up going to Stony Brook University for my undergrad, followed by going to St. George's University in Grenada for my medical school. I did my internal medicine residency at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, and then followed by my cardiology fellowship at New York Methodist Hospital in Brooklyn. So my parents originally are from Gujarat. They emigrated here in the late 70s. As I mentioned earlier, my father was practicing internal medicine in Brooklyn, New York. I myself currently reside in Long Island. My wife also is a physician, and we have 2 small children.
Dr. Bimal Patel, talk about the community and why did you choose to be in this particular community?
Sure. So, growing up here, I have a lot of deep ties to the community, a lot of family here. A lot of my friends growing up still reside in Long Island. So it's important for me to have my family be involved with those people. So we decided to stay in New York. In addition, there's a very large Gujarati population, Punjabi population, Indian population in general, and I felt it was important for me to, being in New York, we're around a lot of South Asian population. South Asian people are generally afflicted with cardiovascular disease. It was important for me to be able to help them, educate them, and treat their underlying cardiovascular conditions, especially knowing that that affects my family as well. And we wanted to be here in the Queens, Long Island area.
Tell us about the Brookhaven's practice. What is different from the other practice in Queens and Long Island?
Sure. So what I think separates Brookhaven Heart from other practices is that not only what Dr. Joseph mentioned earlier about our multiple locations, but what I think is more important is that patients have the opportunity to connect with the physician on a personal level. We provide a lot of same-day appointments and short waiting times, but more importantly, I think we spend a lot of time with patients on a one-on-one, be able to answer their questions, educate them, and they have a lot of access to the physician directly instead of having to go through layers with some of the other practices. So another thing I think that separates us from the other practices in the area is that in Long Island and New York in general, it's predominantly hospital-run systems. I think what separates us is that we are a privately run physician practice and we cater to the patients themselves. I think that gives us the flexibility and the patients themselves to connect and allow us to serve the best interest of the patient.
We do have Dr. Kruger along with us. Let's hear from him.
Well, thank you for having me. I was actually born and raised here on Long Island. I was away for several years for schooling, actually came back, lived on Long Island with my parents through my medical school years, did residency and cardiology fellowship in Westchester, a little upstate. Met my wife there. She had also grown up on Long Island, so when we finished training and came to find jobs, Long Island was home for us, and we were both lucky enough to find good jobs here on Long Island. My family originally was in Europe. We're Jewish by faith, and during the Holocaust, the grandparents fled Europe and came to the US. My wife is actually Persian by birth and also Jewish, so things got uncomfortable there after the revolution, so she was able to get to the United States in her early teens. Again, we met during training up in Westchester, and her extended family and my family as well are around the New York area, so it just seemed like a natural place to come home and raise our own children in the same neighborhood. I have a boy and a girl, one in middle school, one in high school, and we're trying to provide a comfortable upbringing for them.
It's great to see that the Brookhaven has doctors from different culture who can understand the patients of their own community and give a better service for them. Dr. Kruger, what other services do you offer in this office?
Hi, we try to have all the services that a typical cardiovascular patient would require, from some basic things like EKGs and blood work, which we can do right during an initial office visit. We have several different types of stress tests. We have a PET scan machine, basically all the required non-invasive testing. We do various ultrasounds, echocardiograms. We really want the patients to be able to come to the office, meet a quality physician, and have any and all testing that their condition requires done all under one roof, so we can get them good care quickly. The office staff really runs very well. It's a nice cohesive group, and it's a testament to living on Long Island. We have many staff members from all different backgrounds, several of which are bilingual, which helps tremendously with some of the non-English speaking patients. Very quick to cover one another, help one another. The office really is just geared towards getting everybody what they need in a very efficient way, so we can take care of as many patients as we can.
Dr. Kruger, you mentioned about all the services which you are providing for the patients in the office. In case if a patient is needed a further treatment, for more invasive procedures or anything, where do you refer these patients to, and which are the hospitals you are affiliated with for that services?
Sure, great question. We're actually affiliated with multiple hospitals. I am the invasive cardiologist for the group. I do angiograms up at Stony Brook at Long Island Community Hospital. We're affiliated with the Catholic health systems as well as Northwell, so we try to offer any service within the community that the patient's coming from. Around each of our offices, we have multiple affiliated hospitals that we could provide them the care they need. And between the group of us, with all the years of service, we've got great connections throughout the community, so when there is a case that somebody needs something we don't offer under our roof, the next step is only a phone call away, and we work very well with the other doctors in our community.
We had a great segment that dealt with heart healthy living. Now we are out of time, and we will see you at the next episode of Heart Healthy Living on IndiaLife TV, brought to you by Brookhaven Heart.
And education backgrounds as well.
Identify and treat hyperlipidemia.
Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television, brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do. Board-certified cardiologists in East Patchogue, New Hyde Park, and Hicksville, New York.
And education backgrounds as well.
Identify and treat hyperlipidemia.
So we can get them good care quickly.
What inspired me to get into medicine,
And we wanted to make sure that we raise our kids
Tailor our therapy specifically to this population.
Welcome to Healthy Living Show on IndiaLife Television, brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. I am Tara Shajan. This is a new show that is totally about your heart health. In the show, we will be bringing in doctors and medical experts who will talk about how to have a healthy living. Dr. Kruger, with pandemic, our service provided to the patients have changed. We have moved from office visits to telehealth. How do you explain that service change, and what are the advantages we have with the telehealth? And do you have weekend hours?
Yes, we definitely have weekend hours. We offer late hours for the working people in the community. During COVID, when it was hard to get around, we opened up telehealth. We do phone visits, we do internet-based video visits. And we're still doing that even though COVID has largely passed us by. We have elderly, frail patients, sometimes patients that are not very mobile. We still offer those services so we can continue to try to render care however possible.
Let's introduce the last panel member is Dr. Wasik Rahman. Please talk about your practice and your experience.
Hi, thank you for having me. I went to medical school in Pakistan, and I come from a family of doctors. My parents are both doctors. There are several aunts in the family who are doctors. So from a very young age, I was exposed to medicine, and I was very interested in it, which is why I made it a career choice and finally decided to come to the US. I started my fellowship in Brooklyn, went to Brooklyn Methodist Hospital, and then I met my wife in Long Island while during fellowship, and that's where I ended up because my family lives here. I have two small children, and we decided that we will raise our family together over here. The main thing about living here was that I think in Long Island there are people from different cultural backgrounds, and we wanted to make sure that we raise our kids in a multicultural environment where they're exposed to family members and also to people from different cultures. I myself am fluent in Hindi, Urdu, and Pashto, which I also feel that having grown up in Pakistan, it gives me a unique perspective on the cardiovascular disease process that uniquely affects people from the subcontinent. Because, as Dr. Patel had mentioned earlier, the cardiac risk factors are not similar when we compare them with the other populations. In fact, they're higher. And I feel speaking the language, connecting them with them on a personal level, I think we can relate to the cardiac disease process better.
Dr. Rahman, the next question I want to ask you is, what do you recommend as a special diet, or is there any South Asian specific diet for the cardiac patients?
That's a great question. In fact, I get this question a lot in practice because, as everyone knows, the South Asian diet is predominantly very heavy on carbs, and we've noticed that there's a big population who is either pre-diabetic, diabetic. Obesity is also a huge problem, and the two problems are interconnected. So it becomes very difficult sometimes to kind of educate the patient what they can eat, what they cannot eat, how to tailor their diet according to the disease process. The emphasis for diabetics and pre-diabetics is always carb management because, and weight loss, of course, because staple things like rice and roti and things like these are high in carbs, and with our diet, it's sometimes difficult. So I try to tell them that try to introduce as many vegetables, as many other healthy alternatives that they can, and cut back on carbohydrates to help weight loss, help diabetes and their cardiovascular problems. Salt also is a very important part of the South Asian diet, and that's usually also a key to cut back and to help with their blood pressure, heart failure symptoms, and other diseases.
Dr. Patel, you heard from Dr. Rahman about the diet and everything. Do you would like to chip in additional some information, basically on an Indian side, because Indian nutrition is different, a little bit different from the other diets?
No, absolutely, and you know, I second everything that Dr. Rahman had said, but the question is excellent. And I think this is really probably one of the most important aspects of cardiac care, specifically for our communities, and it hits home to me because I've seen it in my own household growing up, where there is this notion of home food or home cooked food or ghar ke khana, that this is a healthy food, but this is actually a misnomer. And the reality is that most of our food, as Dr. Rahman had said, is heavily favored in terms of carbohydrates, and most of our meals consist of 60 to 70% carbohydrates, when in reality they should only consist of about 25% carbohydrates. And so we really take an emphasis in educating our patients regarding how they can change their diet to make it into more of a heart-healthy diet.
Sure. If I may add a couple of other points, in Kerala, for example, the diet is very, cooking is mostly coconut oil. We use a lot of coconut. Ghee is very popular in Kerala. All our biryanis and some of the special diets we prepare contains a lot of ghee, coconut oil. So coconut oil is not one of the healthy oils, and unfortunately it's high in saturated fat. So in addition to cutting back on the carbohydrates, emphasis should be to stick with more vegetables, fruits, vegetable oils like canola, sunflower oil. So these things, and try to, when you cook food, try to bake or grill instead of frying in oil, and try not to use oil multiple times, because it increases the trans fat content in the oil, which increase atherosclerosis, which is plaque buildup in the artery, which can contribute to heart attacks. And also, when you eat meat, try to trim away the fat portions of it, the visible fat, the yellow stuff you find on the meat. Try to trim it and try to stick with the white meat. Plenty of fish is great, especially sea fish. These are things you can do in addition.
Our viewers around the world, we need to take a short break. There is so much to talk about in our show, Healthy Living. And we have many more doctors who will be sharing the important and vital medical information about heart health, which is important to all. We'll be right back.
Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do. Board-certified cardiologists in East Patchogue, New Hyde Park, and Hicksville, New York. Call 631-654-3278 for an appointment. Same-day appointments, evening hours, short wait times, affordable self-pay fees, quality care, state-of-the-art treatments, exceptional staff, informed patients, vein clinic, cardiac pedit services, amazing and caring medical doctors to treat you well. Visit our offices located near you. Brookhaven Heart, you are at the heart of everything we do. Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do.
Welcome back to Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. We have important information to share with you, and for that we have many doctors in our show. So let's continue the show. There is a question I would like to bring it up because being a cardiologist, recently you mentioned, Dr. Joseph, you mentioned that coconut oil is not healthy. But Dr. Oz has been promoting to the general public that coconut oil is healthy. A tablespoon 3 times a day is going to be healthy, and we started seeing it on all the supermarkets and on the shelves that the coconut oil is being sold out, and people have a misperception that the coconut oil is healthy and it is good for the diet. So what do you have to say? You mentioned it is not good. So how do we, as a layperson, when they come to the cardiologist office, how do you rectify this and clarify the info with the patients?
Sure. So coconut oil, anything in moderation, right? So coconut oil, when it's refined coconut oil, is high in saturated fat. It's not that I cannot use coconut oil whatsoever, but if you use it consistently as a regular oil for cooking purpose and every day, that adds a lot of saturated fat. Of course, we can have a certain amount of saturated fat in our diet. Of course, we can have a certain amount of cholesterol. The more the saturated fat we eat, the more the chance of plaque buildup. So grated coconut, for example, is less. There is more fiber in it, there is less saturated fat in it. But refined coconut oil, if you consume on a daily basis, that's not good for your body. To promote atherogenesis, which is plaque buildup, which increases the risk of heart attack. But certain other vegetable oils like canola and sunflower have much less saturated fat, and that's why coconut oil consuming, it's not that you cannot use it, but in a moderate.
Okay, thank you. My next question is to Dr. Alexander. The forms of exercise, what do you recommend for a cardiac patient?
In terms of exercise, I would digress a little bit, not in terms of just exercise for cardiac patients, but for people in general. I think 30 minutes of aerobic exercise 5 days a week is probably that's recommended. A brisk walking, it could be an elliptical, treadmill, any of those things that you'd like can be used, but I think consistency is actually more important here.
Thank you, Doctor.
And if I may add that another misnomer amongst our community is that in patients who do have cardiac diseases, who've had heart attacks, who've had bypass surgery, stents, that there is this notion of just being at home and resting and not doing or pushing yourself too much. And again, this is a misnomer, and that all cardiac patients specifically should be focusing more on exercising, and that after a heart attack, whereas previously we used to feel that there should be a long recovery time, we actually encourage patients to start exercising very soon after a heart attack, because this will help to prevent another heart attack from happening.
Thank you.
If I may add on something. I sometimes get patients who are obese, they have joint problems, and they want to exercise but they cannot. And one alternative is to try water aerobics and swimming sometimes, because I understand it's not for everyone. Some people may not have access to pools, but it's something that can be easy on joints because of being in water. They can exercise better and at least stay fit.
Dr. Joseph, how often and at what age does a person start seeing a cardiologist?
That's a great question. So in general, good healthcare checkups start from pregnancy itself, and as a newborn, if you're a good pediatrician, specific cardiac condition, people can be born with heart conditions, so those things will be detected through good pediatric checkups, good neonatal care, etc. But in general, depending on the population, South Asian population, we hear terrible news about people dying at the age of late 30s, early 40s, without having suddenly dying, collapsing and dying. So South Asian population get heart disease, cardiovascular disease. When I say cardiovascular disease, the most common disease which we worry about is plaque buildup in the arteries, and this plaque buildup can cause heart attacks and strokes depending on where the plaque is built up. Sometimes plaque cracks and cause, that's how a heart attack happens, and without any warning symptoms. Some patients are fortunate to get warning symptoms to get the care they need before something catastrophic happens. But in general, since in South Asian population, because of genetic predisposition, heart disease starts approximately 10 years earlier. So I would recommend in males in the age of early 40s in South Asian population to see a cardiologist. Depending on, again, as I mentioned, a good healthcare starts from good pediatric care, good primary care, and primary care physicians may detect situations where they have to see a cardiologist earlier, maybe 30s, maybe 20s. But if I had to make a general statement, in South Asian population in 40s for males, and in females early 50s. That's what I recommend.
So one other aspect to touch upon in terms of follow-up care and establishing care, we know that typical symptoms of cardiovascular disease, such as chest pain, shortness of breath, are what may bring people to come see a cardiologist. But it's important to highlight that in patients who are diabetic and in women particularly, their symptom presentation may be very subtle. So women and diabetics oftentimes don't have the typical manifestation of cardiovascular disease. So it's very important that if there's any sort of risk factor profile or strong family history, and if those particular patients do have any sort of symptom, they should seek further evaluation, whether it's through their primary care doctor or coming to see us so we could assess and treat appropriately.
Our viewers around the world, we need to take a short break. There is so much to talk about in our show, Healthy Living. And we have many more doctors who will be sharing the important and vital medical information about heart health, which is important to all. We'll be right back.
Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do. Board-certified cardiologists in East Patchogue, New Hyde Park, and Hicksville, New York. Call 631-654-3278 for an appointment. Same-day appointments, evening hours, short wait times, affordable self-pay fees, quality care, state-of-the-art treatments, exceptional staff, informed patients, vein clinic, cardiac pedit services, amazing and caring medical doctors to treat you well. Visit our offices located near you. Brookhaven Heart, you are at the heart of everything we do. Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. Brought to you by Brookhaven Heart. You are at the heart of everything we do.
Welcome back to Healthy Living on IndiaLife Television. We have important information to share with you, and for that we have many doctors in our show. So let's continue the show. Dr. Patel, in connection with what you mentioned about the diabetes, can you just explain a little more what is the association between the diabetes and the cardiac problems, issues?
Sure. So diabetes is one of the main risk factors of cardiovascular disease. When people are affected by diabetes, they have a lot of blood sugar in their bloodstream, and that essentially causes damage to the lining of the artery, which is a trigger for plaque formation. So it's very well understood that patients who are diabetic have a much higher risk of cardiovascular disease such as heart attack and strokes. So if you have diabetes or high blood pressure or a history of smoking or cholesterol, those are certainly things that should be brought to the attention of your primary care provider, or come see us here at Brookhaven Heart.
Dr. Kruger, is hypertension only treated with medication? Are there non-medicine ways to treat hypertension?
It's a good question. There are actually many non-medication factors that have been shown to contribute to bringing down a person's blood pressure. We've touched on a lot of those topics already today. Things like diet and exercise, especially the reduction of salt intake we commented about. Regular exercise, weight loss has been shown to improve a person's blood pressure. And one topic that hasn't really come up that's hugely important is quitting smoking. Can also, in addition to all the other benefits, can actually help bring a person's blood pressure down as well.
Dr. Patel, Brookhaven Heart is not just cardiology, but also offers vascular service. Could you please explain on what is the vascular disease?
Great question. Vascular disease is a component of cardiac disease, so that's why people commonly refer to it as cardiovascular disease. And this vascular disease really encompasses anything that carries blood to any part of the body. So whereas a heart attack specifically affects your heart, a stroke is like having a heart attack but in your brain. And so here at Brookhaven Heart, we cover all types of cardiac and vascular conditions, and that could be people with having blockages in their legs that causes ulcers, or people who have varicose veins that causes them difficulty doing their jobs. We also diagnose aortic aneurysms. We treat patients with carotid disease, and we can diagnose and treat all of these types of patients. And all of our doctors all have different areas of expertise within the field of cardiovascular medicine, which really allows us to provide a comprehensive approach to the patient. So, for example, if a patient has a specific need, we can refer within our own practice to another doctor who may have a specific area of interest to that patient. And so vascular disease is, again, just a comprehensive aspect that we have here at Brookhaven Heart. And so if you have any problems where you are referred for either a cardiac or a vascular condition, we here at Brookhaven Heart are here to help you. And again, we are available on evening hours as well as weekends, and also offer telehealth visits.
In connection to this, I would like to ask you another question. Is cardiology itself is a specialty, but when it comes to cardiology, there are other super specialties which is there within it. You mentioned about the cardiovascular. Do you be able to explain what are the other specialties that we do have?
Sure, absolutely. So as I was mentioning, that everybody in our practice has different areas of expertise, and we have a very comprehensive approach to that. So there are doctors who really are the best in their field in regards to interpretation of imaging studies, from ultrasounds to cardiac PET scans to nuclear stress tests, echocardiograms, and then we have doctors who specialize in things like interventions, so doing angioplasties and stents and angiograms. We have doctors that specialize in areas of things such as heart failure. We have doctors that specialize in areas of preventative medicine, in terms of before you have a heart problem, what can you do to prevent yourself from having a heart problem? One area that we don't cover is what's called electrophysiology, and that involves pacemakers, but we have a very good, strong tie with doctors in the community who also offer these services. So if it is something that you need, whether it's a pacemaker or any other type of condition that may be related to the heart that we cannot help you with in our practice, we can readily, as Dr. Kruger had earlier mentioned, it's a phone call away from getting you to the right person.
Dr. Satish, what is your closing remark on this episode?
Sure, thank you. So thanks for having us today. We have excited to have more episodes of this coming soon in the future to help people live healthy and longer. To summarize about our practice itself, we are not a large corporation. We are a practice which is owned by physicians. The personal touch you get when you come to your practice, the ease of making appointments, the short wait time, same-day appointments. You see your own community physicians who can speak your language, you can understand your culture, you can understand your dietary habits, understand your challenges. So it's different from a large corporation. It's the personal touch you feel through our practice. And we also offer all broad range of cardiac and vascular services, including varicose vein treatment, arterial treatment for venous ulcers, and all cardiac testing, broad range of cardiac testing. Also we are open late hours, most weekdays, and we have weekend hours, and we accept all the insurances. And it's our goal to work more closely with the community, to help the community to understand how to live healthy, how to live longer, take care of your heart, and to be successful. Thank you.
We had a great segment that dealt with heart healthy living. Now we are out of time, and we will see you at the next episode of Heart Healthy Living on IndiaLife TV, brought to you by Brookhaven Heart.
And educational backgrounds as well.
Identify and treat hyperlipidemia.
So we can get them good care quickly.
What inspired me to get into medicine?
And we wanted to make sure that we raise our kids
Tailor our therapy specifically to this population.